Fellow patriot, I'm not trying to be nosy or pushy, but do you have the 37 food items you can't get in the coming disaster and may not survive without? The reason I ask is, as you already know, something big is about to hit the U.S. and we've got to be prepared. In fact, without what I'm about to show you, you may not survive. That's why I made this short video. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn which food item will fly off the shelf first. When you find out what it is, it's obvious you can't survive without it. And I'll tell you exactly where to get it before the general public does and how to store it securely, along with how to practically smell a disaster coming and lock down your supplies or get anything you're low on before the mob goes crazy. Not to mention how to keep your family from being attacked, robbed, or even noticed by buying these items before they're on the radar. So stop what you're doing, close all your other tabs and windows, and grab something to write with. This video is going to blow the whole conspiracy wide open, and you don't want to miss a crucial detail because you were on Facebook. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Damian Campbell, and I want to talk to you about the coming disaster and how to survive it without ever going hungry. With the shaky state liberals have put our country in, our food supply is in a dangerous place. The fact of the matter is, any disaster, big or small, could force you to go weeks without food. See, without the essentials, food and water, you may not survive. And there's going to be no way to get these crucial food items when a crisis hits, or when the news even smells a crisis for that matter. Think about it. How would you survive a terrorist attack that caused widespread panic and shut down all shops and stores in your area? Would you be forced to beg neighbors for food or be shipped off to FEMA camps? Could you and your family survive hurricanes or snowstorms that whip your neighbors into a panic-buying frenzy, grabbing any and everything they can get their hands on? What if the stores weren't restocked for weeks? What would you do if your home was hit by floods, washing out roads and making it impossible for stores to supply food for the coming days and months? Would you survive? And how would you deal with protesting labor unions holding your food hostage? Would your kids go hungry? The sad part is, people don't think any of these very real disasters will ever happen, or at least won't happen to them. In fact, maybe that's what you're thinking. Well, my friend, history says otherwise. Remember these recent disasters that cost thousands of lives? In 2011, after the Tohoku tsunami in Japan, over 300,000 people were evacuated to emergency government camps. Let me tell you, those camps weren't pretty. As sad as it is, some of the refugees died there. In the meantime, survivors lined up for blocks outside of 7-Elevens and grocery stores for a scrap of food. And in 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami wiped out shops, stores, and food supply routes for hundreds of thousands of people, not to mention killed 230,000 or more. And if you think the U.S. government, FEMA, and local authorities are going to respond any better when disasters hit the U.S., take a second and think back to Hurricane Katrina. When Katrina hit in 2005, stores closed, looters ran wild, and every day, hardworking people were forced into FEMA, quote, relief camps. Fast forward to the 2010 Haitian earthquake, followed by the massive Chilean earthquake where more than 316,000 people were killed. Survivors are still struggling to reestablish consistent access to food. And on top of that, every year the U.S. is hit by a deadly mix of disasters. Tornadoes touch down in the southeast. Blizzards dump piles of snow in the northwest. Severe droughts drain the central U.S. Wildfires blaze in California. Earthquakes rock the west. And floods cause millions of dollars worth of damage everywhere. In fact, FEMA states that every American lives in a flood zone. The only difference is if you're in a low, medium, or high-risk area. So now that we're being honest about what can happen, here are the two options you and all of us as Americans have. Option 1, you can put all your hopes for survival in the government and FEMA, or Option 2, you can take survival into your own hands. Please believe me when I say, as your brother in arms, I want to help you and your family survive any way I can. That in mind, you need to know, this could be the most important video of your life, so keep watching. Trust me, it's a video you don't want to miss. As the author of the top-selling Survive Anything Guide, I've done my homework, and what I found was pretty scary. Strangely enough, the weird secrets I discovered are mostly common sense. Any 5-year-old can tell you, without food and water, you're in trouble. A human can die a few hours after dehydration, especially if they're doing anything physical, like running from a mob or fighting off an attacker. And life without food means a slow and painful death, starting with confusion and diarrhea and ending with spine-racking seizures and hallucinations from hell. It's not fun to think about, but even if a crisis lasts just a few weeks, it can be deadly to you and your family if you're not prepared. But it's even worse for people who think they've got plenty of food and are ready for anything. The truth is, if you buy the wrong food items, you'd have been better off buying nothing at all. You probably can't imagine how crushing it is when your kids realize their dad was wrong and your wife feels like you failed to protect the family, even if they'd never say it. Now, I don't know you from Adam, but as my fellow patriot, I don't want this to happen to you or your family, and I'm sure you don't either. That's why I've put together this list of 37 crucial food items that sell out when disaster hits. Frankly, the hundreds of people who have been helped by my Survive Anything guide need to know what these items are, or everything they learned would be for nothing. Heck, every single American needs to know what these 37 critical foods are, because honestly, without these crucial items, your family isn't going to be prepared. And by the time disaster hits and these foods fly off the shelf, it's too late. There's no way around the fact that all foods aren't created equal. Some are completely worthless nutritionally. And it goes without saying, but your family's health is too important to waste money on foods that will kill them slowly in a crisis. The sad part is, even though the average American doesn't know what to look for, they'll grab anything and everything in a disaster. That's why you should know these 6 survival food tips up front. First off, you're killing your family if you're counting on a garage full of MREs or other survival food to get you through a disaster. And second, why the food your wife normally buys is almost perfect, but the thing she hasn't thought to buy is crucial. This caught me off guard when I found out. Third, and super important, is why your food is worthless if you buy the wrong packaging. Trust me, there's nothing more demoralizing than finding your carefully packed food crawling with maggots and realizing your family is going to go hungry. And fourth, how to pack your food like a Special Forces soldier so your family will have the basics even if you have to run. Fifth, how to tell if you're going to make your family sick by eating expired food, or if it'll be just as good as the day it was packaged. By the way, this is extremely important for long-term disasters like a food crisis. And oddly enough, sixth, why this brand of alcohol should be at the top of your list even if you don't drink. See, right now, people look down on us patriots who take the obvious dangers seriously and are getting ready. Sometimes our neighbors or even family say we're crazy or kooky. But here's what I think. People may say we're nuts now, but we'll see who was right when they're asking us for help. And as Christians, we won't even say I told you so. See, there'll be no way to buy any of these critical items after a disaster. You know that, and I know that. But spoiled, rotten Americans think they can snap their fingers and get whatever they want. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how rich, popular, or politically correct you are. When people are starving and panicking, you're not going to get what you need without a fight. That's why you must get these 37 crucial food items before the panic. And it's also why we're going to be the people on top of the game when crisis hits. See, with these 37 items, you'll be able to attract like-minded Americans to rebuild our nation based on the Constitution without all the liberal crap. And be a community leader ready to protect and provide for your fellow patriots. And not only that, but you will set the example for your close friends and family. These 37 items are so important you'll become the disaster go-to guy. And the great thing is, these 37 items won't break the bank. Really, the only way to screw this up is to wait. If you don't have them in advance, you're sunk. The fact of the matter is, when disaster hits, many stores will close, and coddled Americans will panic. But for some strange reason, liberals try to pretend like nothing is going to happen, or there's no reason to freak out. And they're the first ones to run to the store and strip the shelves bare just as soon as the news even mentions crazy weather. Imagine if they announced something like 9/11 again. How do you think they're going to act when their favorite grocery store has its windows smashed and nothing left on the shelves? You know exactly what they'll do. Start a panic and loot every store around. But more on that in a second. What I can't understand is why they're ignoring the evidence. Weird conspiracy theories aren't my cup of tea, but the factual evidence here is different. It's obvious you need these 37 critical food items now. Just take a look at these recent news bulletins. Researcher Kent Arnsberger recently exposed grocery stores for their poor planning. They might carry 3 to 4 days worth of food. That's gone in mere hours or even minutes during a crisis, so you won't be able to get your hands on things your family needs to live unless you have them in advance. And the Mayo Clinic recommends you drink about 2 liters of water every day. How much water would you have if, God forbid, terrorists poisoned our water supply or nuclear fallout made rainwater undrinkable? And worst of all, Fox News reports lack of acreage in the U.S. will usher in a significant food shortage. Not to mention the fact Off the Grid News reported the U.S. government recently put in an order for a 10-day supply of food for 14 million people. That means 420 million emergency meals. Maybe that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you compare it to the 6 million meals normally on hand, it brings up a disturbing question. As an observant American, I have to ask the question you're probably thinking. Why the sudden 7,000% increase? When you add all that up, how people can't see the obvious truth is beyond me. But the part that really bugs me is, when a disaster strikes, who do you think all these clueless freeloaders are going to try and come to? You guessed it. You and your family who were wise enough to stock up on the necessities before the crisis. There's no way to deny that food prices have been skyrocketing, which makes it even more important to buy these 37 critical items before the prices go even higher. And if you think food is expensive now, imagine what it'll be like when stores shut down and farms can't feed their livestock. After all, when your family is hungry and you know you can't restock anytime soon, would you sell even a scrap of food? Heck no. And if you were going to sell some of your precious food, how much would you charge? Would you take credit? That food would be worth its weight in gold, literally. That means if your family is less than rich or even in some debt right now, you need to buy these 37 essential food items while you still can. But this isn't some doomsday prediction. Take a look at what happened in Germany when hyperinflation hit. In 1923, the Weimar Republic was hammered by hyperinflation in record time. A pound of meat that cost 36 marks less than a year before jumped to 36 billion marks practically overnight, and the U.S. is on the same crash course. But here's some good news. These 37 food items are specifically for middle-class Americans who are going through hard times financially. This may sound harsh, but rich people don't need my help. These 37 items are for Americans who won't make it without the basics and can't spend a fortune trying to survive when disaster hits. That's why instead of just getting a generic list, you'll get the info on where to get the top 3 crucial items even if you're barely making ends meet and are neck deep in debt. Along with the top items that are just as good as name brand but a fraction of the cost. In fact, a lot of the big companies try to hide these trade names to keep you spending. Not to mention how to use items hiding in your cupboard to replace anything you might be missing. And most importantly, where to find the last couple of items if you get caught in a panicked mob. As you can see, this isn't a guide that sends you to the camping store to spend hundreds of dollars on dehydrated survival food. Besides, even if you can afford it, that stuff isn't a great long-term answer. Now, it doesn't matter if you're in debt or on a tight budget. You can afford to protect your family and get the most critical food and water items on the market. But you might think this sounds too good to be true. In fact, I've had people contact me accusing me of being some kind of scam artist or hustler. So I guess the real question is, why am I doing this? Some people will accuse me of trying to make a buck off my fellow Americans' back. And you know what? They're right, to a point. After all, I've done hard work researching, writing, and preparing these survival guides, and I expect to be paid for it. We're not communists yet, right? But the other piece is even more selfish. The hard truth is, if you're not with us, you're against us. Our country needs more Americans like you who are serious about preparing. Even with the ultra-patriots, there's no way we can support every single person unless they do their part. Like it or not, when people's children are starving, there are going to be riots. Looters will try to take food by force, and I don't want you to be part of that mob. That means by getting you these 37 food items for your family, I've made my family that much safer. Now, if you and I can convince the entire nation to prepare now, the only people we'd have left to support would be the freeloaders and liberals. And there's no place in our country for people not willing to work anyways. But talk is cheap. Are you ready for a look at exactly what's in this guide along with the exclusive bonuses? Plus, if you like what you see, you'll learn how you can get your hands on them without risking 1 red cent. Now, for the good stuff. Here's what you get. First up is the Sold Out After Crisis 37 Vital Food Items Guide. By now, you've figured out these items can be the difference between your family's survival and, well, if you're like me, you don't need to finish that sentence. Your family's survival is the only option. These items have been broken down into straightforward lists so you can get them easily and cheaply. But there's a lot more here than just a detailed list. You're also going to learn which food item will fly off the shelf first, and when you find out what it is, it'll be obvious you can't survive without it. So I'll tell you exactly where to get it before the general public and how to store it securely. And you'll discover where to get the top 3 crucial items even if you're barely making ends meet and are deep in debt. Not only that, but you'll learn the weird trick behind how to practically smell a food riot coming and how to lock down your supplies or get anything you're low on before the mob goes crazy. And one of my personal favorites, you'll find out about this ancient seed that can grow with little water, has more amino acids than an egg, and is better for you than cereals you eat now. And along with that seed, you'll discover how to use this other delicious mystery food to its fullest.
Click the link right below this video to get started. And remember, if you decide at any point within the 60 days that this isn't right for you, I'll send you a full refund, no problem. You'll you'll just have my sincere thanks for at least giving it a try. So click the link below, and I'll see you on the other side.